Welcome back to the Goonery after having a week off because the corporate world can absolutely suck. We're back to talk the 3-5 Chicago Bears, but that's a 3-5 with a sense of life around it for the first time in a while, in my opinion. Coming off of very eventful trade deadline. Usually the trade deadline in the NFL tends to be a little quieter. I mean, especially compared to MLB, which is just absolutely nuts most times. But the Bears have traded Pro Bowl linebacker, and I would say at this moment in time, he was the most talented player on their team, Roquan Smith, for a
Mhm.
second round pick, a fifth round pick, and a 31-year-old linebacker, AJ Klein, to the Baltimore Ravens. I've seen a lot of people, Brandon, kind of bitching and moaning about the compensation, how they should have gotten at least a first round pick for Roquan Smith. You have to remember, it's for 9 games.
Right.
I, and it just goes to show you how little value off the ball linebackers have in the NFL at this point in time, especially looking at what the Lions were able to get for TJ Hawkinson, a tight end from in their division rival, the Minnesota Vikings. I don't know about you. I'm okay with the trade. I think it was a step in the right direction. And I think it just sets a precedent even more so than before with this front office that just because you were valued by the past regime, we're not going to bow down to every single demand you have. And I'm just really, really interested to see what Ryan Poles is going to be able to do with, is it eight picks in the draft next year, I believe now, after the Chase Claypool deal, which we'll get to, and roughly $125 million in cap.
So you could take this from two perspectives, and I'm going to start with the first one, which is you can be upset as a Bears fan that this had to come to him being traded. Like that's totally legit. And the fact of the matter is this: Roquan Smith is indeed the most talented guy on that defense, next to Jalen Johnson, no
Mm-hmm.
doubt about it. And the thing is, I understand Roquan has had some up and down games this year. And I'm pretty sure that had nothing to do with prompting the trade. But fact is, he was very talented, but he also had games where he just didn't really play good, and that was the case on in his final Bears game this previous Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go from the other standpoint, and you can say that Ryan Poles did the right thing. If there is not going to be a resolution to this issue,
Mm-hmm.
franchise tag was never going to be an option at that point. You have to try and get something for him. And I get it. Like the conversation, at first I had to, I was the typical reactionary fan where I was just like, oh my God, like we even got a first rounder for a guy that was a Pro Bowler, somewhat perennial Pro Bowler. But I also have to realize that for probably the Ravens, who knows if this is going to be a rental.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, it is a business. You are not in the business of winning. And I think Bears fans know that. But there's some people who still think that the Bears can win. But I'm going to get to that. But it's a thing of the right moves are being made. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it can be unfortunate on some ends because of the business aspect and how there are certain guys that are not going to stick around long term.
Mm-hmm.
You have to try and get some compensation with that, because I don't fully believe Ryan Poles when he says that the rebuild will go through the draft. I think that's a pure smokescreen, but it does have truth behind it. You're not going to have the amount of money that you have. You're not going to offload the amount of money that you have
Mm-hmm.
just so you can just rebuild through the draft. I mean, let's be real. So I think that it's unfortunate to see Roquan go. You would have loved for this to have been resolved, but you just like that it's going to be some compensation in the form of draft picks coming back. Because if not, then it's a failure. And if you kept around for the season, would a guy hurt or anything like that, and you got nothing for him, then what? You would have been saying, "Damn, you should have traded Roquan." But I'm glad we got out the way.
Yeah, I mean, and it sucks too, especially considering if Roquan does not end up re-signing with Baltimore following this year, the Bears have to send a conditional third over to Baltimore, which that's gonna hurt if he walks, but something tells me with the history that Baltimore tends to have with the linebacker position, I don't see Roquan leaving that defense. I really don't, especially if you just look at their front seven. It's not anything special. And he's going to be that defensive cornerstone that Bears fans would have hoped he could have been for them. And it's going to make a lot of people happy with Baltimore. I mean, genuinely, nothing but the best for Roquan. It sucks it had to end this way. And I don't read a lot into PFF numbers, but not sure if you saw this. AJ Klein, the 31-year-old linebacker that the Bears got in this trade from Baltimore, has a higher PFF rating on the season than Roquan Smith, even though Roquan's leading the league in tackles. You see, I don't really even know exactly how they come to these conclusions, but it's a stat that I'm gonna throw out there.
And here's the thing too. I think that when you talk about PFF ratings, I think they really hinge on certain games.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want to wait on the scale of, because I'm pretty sure with the Texans game, he had probably one of the highest grades like between both teams. And then you go to Washington and New England, he probably had high grades. But when it was bad for Roquan, it was really bad.
Yeah.
Against Green Bay, it was really bad. Against Dallas, it was really bad. And I mean, here's the thing. AJ Klein, I expect him to be some type of guy that we're going to keep around for a very long time. He's 31 years old. But I mean, let's just say that if he does have a high PFF rating, maybe I'll be a little excited about having more defense because, I mean, I know losing a big piece is a very big deal, but if he's going to help in a way where we're not going to get gashed on a running game like we do on a Sunday, then I'll take it.
Yeah, and that's always been my number one thing with Roquan. Off the ball, sideline to sideline, as good as it gets. Genuinely as good as it gets in pursuit down the field. But when it comes to filling a hole in the run game, I don't know if it's because he's a little undersized. It's an aggression thing. I don't know, but he doesn't have that killer instinct to clog holes like we've seen with Bears linebackers in the past. And I don't know. It's interesting because I don't know if that's more so a sign of that's what the modern NFL inside linebacker plays like,
right?
Or if that's just a Roquan thing. I'm genuinely not sure, but it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of looks with this Baltimore defense, because I would tend to think that because of how good their secondary is, they're gonna let him fly around the field. And I don't know. It's a good move for the Ravens, who are in position to be who are, in my opinion, it's easily a top 3 team in the AFC right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we'll see how this shakes out. I'm hoping that we don't have to send a third to Baltimore, but hey, I guess at least they have the draft capital where, unlike in years past, it won't hurt as much if it has to go. But kind of based on how this trade deadline panned out for the Bears, I see them trading down in the first and just trying to collect as many picks as they can, because the thing that everyone has been saying for the Bears that makes the most sense next year in the first round is that Justin Fields needs a legit number 1 receiver. Now, I don't think Chase Claypool is a legit number 1 receiver, but I think Chase Claypool is very good and has been in an absolutely dog shit situation the past 2 years more than anything. And he is like 24 years old. He's 6'4", 6'5", runs a 4.4, 4.5. You saw what he did in his rookie year. He has potential to be special. And I think that move, people are unhappy that it's a second round pick. If you take a look at the second round receivers from the past few years, you're not really getting much better than Chase Claypool, like current state. And one more year I left on his contract, and we were kind of talking about this. It's a really shitty free agent class for wide receivers. I mean, top of the line receivers next year, you're looking at the likes of like Sterling Shepard, Jacoby Myers, Alan Lazard. I mean, it's just a lot of guys, right? And not that Chase Claypool hasn't been just kind of another guy these past few years. You have to look who's been throwing in the football. You had a decrepit Big Ben You have Kenny Pickett, who, for lack of a better word term, just looks horrendous, and Mitch Trubisky, who was the scapegoat once again for a team, which is just unfortunate. But Claypool really hasn't been given the opportunity to succeed, and I think he's going to come in to Chicago, and I think it might not be right away, but with the way Justin Fields has been kind of throwing the rock the last couple weeks, I'm I'm excited, man.
I will say I'm glad you came around because we discussed this after the trade had happened, and you were iffy about it, and rightly so. And I think giving up a second round draft pick definitely does hurt. Having two picks in the second round, it could just off of based off of what we had in last year's draft, it could very much pay big dividends in having two second round picks.
Mhm.
Totally understand it. But like you said, and honestly, you took every point that I was going to make, and it's all good. But if you're relying on guys like Jacoby Myers or Alan Lazard, Sterling Shepard, who can't stay on the field, I mean, what are you really doing? What kind of value are you actually looking for in the first or second round?
Mhm.
Because ideally, because this is the type of year. This is the time of year. We're 3-5. No, we're not going to make the playoffs. So you know what I'm doing? I'm looking at mock drafts, and
Mhm.
I saw Bleacher Report's mock draft, and they had Jordan Addison drop it to number 12, where they have us picking. Now, I will say this: I'm not sure if we're going to be picking at number 12, but it may be possible considering that we are in every game that we do play. So
Yeah.
that's fine. I get it. It really, really, really depends on where our draft position is and who happens to fall into our lap. And it's going to be tough because at this moment in time, if you tell me we're going to be picking 12 and we have Jordan Addison on the board, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm sorry, I have to pick him because to me, if you pair Jordan Addison with a Chase Claypool, with a Darnell Mooney, or hell, this last part of the season, we are going to see a position battle between Equinemius St. Brown and N'Keal Harry
Good
to see who's
Harry.
going to get that last spot. And if they earn that last spot, guess what? They did exactly that. They earned
Mhm.
it. So is
And
that a good situation? Yes. And the thing is too, if you want to look at where the wide receiver position is, and let's look at our second need, which presumably is our second need, defense. You would
there's
have
a
thought
couple
that
spots.
yeah, defense on a defensive side, it's very, very much different. They got talent in the free agent pool
Mhm.
for next year. So you can afford to spill money into that defense and go
Mhm.
offensive line and wide receiver in the draft. And you can do both with defensive line and offensive line in free
Yep.
agency. So right now, the Bears are in an incredible position, and I love the fact that Poles know that where he's going to be at with free agency and wide receivers, it's not going to be a very easy thing to get a
Yeah.
guy that's going to be reliable to be a number one or number two. So get your guys and maybe have a couple of number twos, and maybe someone will emerge as a number one because there's actually going to be other guys that's going to attract attention from the defense. I
Mhm.
think it's a win. I saw ESPN rated the Chase Claypool trade a D plus, which is ridiculous to me.
Shocking.
But then
Shocking.
again, I have to realize who in the hell in the national media says anything positive about the Bears nowadays.
Mhm.
So it is what it is. But you get your guys at this moment in time, and I think there's going to be a lot more good coming from this.
Yeah.
And from all of this, I think Ryan Poles has given me a bit of vote of confidence. There's a lot of things that have changed in the past couple of weeks, and his mindset between the roster and the philosophy has really sold me.
Mhm. And something that I kind of picked up on there in your analysis of this whole situation. In years past, were you excited that year after year you knew the Bears were going to go into free agency spending more money on the defensive side of the football? I mean, genuinely, like it was year after year, every big free agency signing. It'd be an over the hill outside linebacker, an over the hill defensive end. And now we're excited that they will most likely be spending money on the defensive side of the football because the offense, they have young talent. That offensive
Yes.
line has a lot of young talent. You don't have to sink a ton of money into that for the time being. The last 2, 3 weeks, Justin Fields has cemented himself as the number one quarterback in his draft class, in my opinion, so far.
I wanted to get to that.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Oh yeah.
But it also kind of scares me that Justin Fields has the last, I would say, 72 hours or so.
Mhm.
Justin Fields has been getting praised across the entire country, all national media, for how good he's looked. And the whole story this entire season was that Justin Fields looks horrible. But now people are just so happening to come around on the fact that he is the entire Chicago Bears offense right now, and it runs through him. And it all started when they started to revolve the offense around his skill set. Crazy that every armchair quarterback in the entire world watching the Chicago Bears said, you need to feature Justin Fields. You need to let him use his legs. You need to get the play action going. And the passing numbers, they're not gaudy by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, they're not pretty to look at, but he has looked efficient. He's looked more confident. And there's just been buzz around him that you're excited to watch him every single time he touches the football the last few weeks. Whereas, in my opinion, at least this year, it's been like, it's like you're looking at the screen with one eye, you're looking away from the screen with the other, because you're just afraid to see what he's going to do, because it's just like he was almost being set up to fail. And Getsy's turned a page with him. He's turned it. I mean, it's more Justin Fields turning a page than Luke Getsy. Let's.
I think it's a mix of both.
It is, but it's still. Yeah, no, fair. But it's just it's been just a pleasure, like just watching him. I haven't enjoyed watching a quarterback operate on the Chicago Bears in God knows how long. Maybe Mitch's 6 touchdown game against the Buccaneers.
Yeah, I hold that in my back pocket like it's my wallet at this point. Like it's beautiful.
But other than that, I mean, it's just been so ugly for so many years, and now you have a guy that, for the first time in my mind, Justin Fields is 1,000%.
I'm gonna make an equivalency that's going to sound a little bit crazy. The Bears holding back Justin Fields from having an input on the offense is telling Steph Curry not to shoot the damn ball. Like, and it's crazy to me. You snatched away his legs, you snatched away what he was good at, and it was. And I'm gonna tell you what exactly I think it was. It was Luke Getsy feeling a little bit of Matt Nagy-ish. You are gonna run my offense, and you just need to learn in my offense. And then when you put up 7 points against the Washington Commanders. Now 4-4 Washington Commanders. I mean, good Lord. But anyways, you put up 7 points against the Washington Commanders, and Fields Eberflus says, listen, this shit gotta change. And because we saw it in the press conference, I'm tired of being just one play away or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And all they needed was to tweak the offense just a little bit, just to see if he's going to be the quarterback. And listen, I could regret saying what I'm about to say, but at the end of the day, from a talent standpoint and what I see with my own 2 eyes, I've seen Rex Grossman come through his quarterback room. I've seen Kyle Orton. I've seen Jay Cutler. I've seen Josh McCown. I've seen Mitchell Trubisky. Justin Fields is the most sure I've been about a Bears quarterback in all of my fandom. And I will put a lot on the line to say that if you get him weapons, I promise you, he is going to make the Bears extremely happy. And I'm so glad that there are people that's actually realizing that all they needed to do was tweak the offense a little bit and he was going to flourish. And by the way, I would like to call out the specific people that constantly told me and you this entire offseason, even through the first 3-4 weeks of the season, the Bears don't have a plan. The Bears don't have a plan. I'm sorry, you flipped your best defensive player to get him another weapon. And you load up on draft picks to probably get him another
Yep.
weapon. I'm sorry. Does that sound like a guy that doesn't have the vote of confidence of the whole organization? If that's still your mindset, then I feel bad for you. I really do. But you cannot tell me at this moment in time, with the stuff that they have done to make sure that Fields is comfortable and he is staying upright in the pocket, you're gonna tell me that they're not building this franchise around this guy? Come on now. A lot of y'all people, y'all look stupid right now. And y'all probably think y'all won't, because at the end of the day, outside of Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney, they're still gonna be going to the same guys. Okay, whatever. Cool. But you know what? You know what's going to keep happening throughout the season? He is going to scare teams into thinking that he's going to run the football and run it effectively, that he's going to tear a defense up. And it's going to be beautiful to see.
And it's going to happen these next 2 weeks, if we're being honest, with how this schedule is shaping up for the Bears. I mean, you have the Dolphins, whose defense, I mean, the Dolphins are going to put up 50 points. I mean, it is going to be ugly watching what Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill do to that defense. And it's not going to be death by 1,000 paper cuts like it was against Dallas. It's going to be big play after big play after big play, which I'm not looking forward to watching it, but that Miami defense is nothing special. And Bears are going to have to fucking just move the football quick and effectively and try and match the pace the best they can. And I think it's going to be really that one of the first times we're going to see a no huddle offense consistently at the pro level. And I'm excited for it because you get him into a rhythm like he's been getting himself into at a little bit of a slower pace. If you let him use his legs effectively, you're mixing in the receivers now, you're mixing in the rushing attack of Herbert and Montgomery. I'm excited. And if it's not the Dolphins, which I think he'll have a good game against the Dolphins, I mean, it's the next week at home against Detroit, because
absolutely
they're as bad as it gets.
and you know what's funny too? Me and you were here before the season. And you know what? Credit to them in this little regard. Not many games have been easy for their opponents. But it's been the same thing with the Lions every single year. They can't close games, they can't finish games, and honestly, with what we've done to Detroit the past couple of years, I feel very confident going into that game. And I tell you, it feels pretty damn good to know that we most likely, barring a run, will not be finishing last in an NFC North, because we was projected to be down there.
Yeah, and if we're being honest, I think they finish in second in the division.
Really?
I think there's a lot of dysfunction north of Chicago in the state of Wisconsin. I think you're going to see Aaron Rodgers play very, very uninspired football to close this season out, because he's pissed that they didn't make a move for him at the deadline. You saw the Bears going out, getting Justin Fields a weapon. You saw the Vikings going out, getting getting Kirk Cousins another weapon while they have a firm lead in the division. And then you see the Lions, yes, they're just stacking draft picks and entering their perpetual rebuild.
Hey, Jameson Williams comes back though.
I know. Yeah, I mean, that's a classic White Sox move. Someone's hurt. Yeah, that's our trade line acquisition. They're just too familiar. But I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I saw a quote from him yesterday on deadline day when he was on the Pat McAfee show, saying something along the lines of, on his weekly spot on the show, I was really hoping I could have broken some type of news on here, but I guess not. And the Packers also offered a second-round pick for Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
And I know it's because they said they thought the Bears are going to finish higher with a higher pick, which, I mean, very well still could happen.
Yeah.
But Green Bay looks absolutely atrocious, man. Like, they look horrible. And because that defense, we thought their defense was going to carry that team with the rushing attack of Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. The defense doesn't look good, and AJ Dillon does not look like the AJ Dillon from last year.
No,
like at all.
And you wonder too, because I said it a couple of weeks ago that the Packers, the only way they're going to be successful is if they run the ball. Their receivers are not built to be, they're not built for Aaron Rodgers to air the ball out. Now, I don't know if this was an indictment on the Bills' run defense or the Packers' offensive line run blocking wise. They're pretty damn good. I don't know, but we're gonna find out. We're eventually gonna find that out. But one thing that is extremely crazy to think is that we're going to see defenses play 8 men in the box against the Packers of all teams with that guy at quarterback. We might see teams play in the box because does Sammy Watkins scare you at this time of his career? No. Does Romeo Doubs scare you at this time? No. The only guys that you can really be scared of is Aaron Jones and to a lesser degree Robert Tonyan. That's it. Because receiver wise, they are very, very weak. And you know what?
Romeo Doubs has not looked bad.
He's not looked bad at all.
But you can't be relying on a rookie like him to carry your offense. And it's crazy to say because I saw the discourse all over Twitter all offseason. The Packers have better offensive weapons than the Bears, and at this point in time, preseason, did I agree with that? I did.
I don't think I did.
I did just because I thought the duo of Dillon and Jones, and then any offense with Aaron Rodgers should in theory be great. It should, but it hasn't been. And that's where my head was at, where at this point in time, am I taking Justin Fields' a new offense or Aaron Rodgers? And that's where my lean went at that time. But right now, I don't even think it's a debate 10 times out of 10. If Aaron Rodgers was given the option to switch offenses, switch skill position players, Bears for Packers straight up, he's doing that 10 times out of 10.
100%.
Which is insane. It baffles me because with how he's looked the past couple of weeks, I think N'Keal Harry would walk into Green Bay and be their number one receiver right now.
And you know what? And with all due respect to N'Keal Harry, because I think he has a role on the Bears offense. But that's an indictment on how little this front office has done. But here's the thing too. I know we talk about how the Packers front office doesn't do this, they don't do that. But at what point are we going to blame Aaron Rodgers for getting himself back into a situation which he knew was going to be in the first place?
Yeah.
Because he had the opportunity to leave. I know the Packers wasn't willing to trade him, but if Aaron Rodgers would have held them no choice, guess what? Aaron Rodgers would have gotten his way. And
he'd be playing quarterback in Denver right now.
He'd be playing quarterback in Denver, San Francisco, you name it. He would be a quarterback somewhere else. And you know what? That's why I can't feel bad for him. This is who the Packers have been for the past couple of years. They don't get those guys. They develop those guys, and maybe that's their plan. Maybe they think they have the next Jordy Nelson or Devontae Adams on their roster. But if you're expecting that this year, that's a problem. Because at the end of the day, the NFC is so damn wide open that the fact that the Packers can't take advantage of that, that's a damn shame.
Yep.
And here's the thing. If you told me at this moment in time that the Bears and the Packers have the same chances of making the playoffs, I would have said you're fucking crazy. But that's exactly what's happened. And you know what? I'm tempted to agree with you that we're going to see a lot of uninspired football with Aaron Rodgers, because I think at this moment in time, it is going to be really, really hard for him to actually give a shit. And that is what's going to be kind of crazy to watch.
And that's where I'm coming from. I think you're going to see either one of two things. He plays the best football of his career because he's pissed off, but I just think he feels like he's just been so perpetually fucked over and left in the dust by Green Bay's front office that he's just going to go on a fuck you tour. That's genuinely how I'm looking at it. And I just find it hard to believe. Carolina was not trading DJ Moore. That would have put them into full on tank mode. Granted, they are in full on tank mode, but like you get my point. They can't trade DJ Moore in addition to trading everyone else they got rid of.
Right.
But with how unhappy the likes of like Brandon Cooks, for example, I'm not sure if you saw his tweet.
Yeah.
You have to wonder what the asking price was for him because Brandon Cooks, in my opinion, is one of the 3 or 4 most underrated offensive players, if wide receivers, if not wide receivers, offensive players.
I'll say players in general.
I mean,
he's that good.
So consistently good wherever he goes. I mean, I feel like it's almost one of those things with him where he's just bounced around so much from team to team, whether it was in New Orleans, New England, now with Houston. I feel like I'm missing one other stop, but I just feel like he's had difficulty kind of establishing himself somewhere, and that's why people tend to forget about him at times. But
yeah,
he's been pretty damn good the last 2 years with Davis Mills throwing him the football, and
right.
You just have to wonder what the asking price was. Where
and knowing Houston, the way they operate, they're one of the, in terms of an operation standpoint, Houston's one of the worst ran organizations in football. So I wouldn't be surprised if they
professional sports.
Yes, it's they're horribly ran, and it's always been this way. But you just have to wonder. And this was a conversation I had with my friends, and it's just like how is it beneficial to keep a player on the team that is clearly unhappy, wanted to be traded, expected to be traded, didn't show up to the facility because he thought he was going to be traded. What is the benefit in keeping him? At that point, you have to lower your price down because it's not like going forward you're not going to have any guys that's coming back because John Mechie is missing the season because of cancer treatment. He's eventually going to be back. So it's not like you're gonna miss out on guys to build for in the future. You still have Nico Collins, and there's not much under him, but you still have guys.
Yeah.
So I just don't see the benefit in it, and it's the business of football that really is nasty. But of course, it's coming from the Texans organization. It's not surprising. But I also want to make another point too. I thought about this. I thought it would be extremely unfair. I know this is completely out of left field, but what if this season is such a failure that Matt LaFleur is actually being talked about to get fired because Aaron Rodgers wants him out?
That's just so tough because he's proven. Well, then again, I don't know if he's proven it or if Aaron Rodgers has just carried him. You know what I mean? Like you have to ask yourself the debate, but at that point in time, just because of age and contract situation, they're gonna pick LaFleur, I think.
As they should.
No, I agree. I agree, but I don't think I think if Rodgers put the pressure on them to fire LaFleur or get rid of him, I do not see Green Bay bending the knee to Rodgers under any circumstances.
No.
And I genuinely do believe Matt LaFleur is a good coach.
I do too.
I do. He has. I had my doubts at first. I thought he just had a funny French name, and I thought, oh, he was friends with Sean McVay. That's why he got hired. Right. He proved us wrong very quickly with what his offense has been able to do. Granted, it's not doing much this year, but it's the same excuse you could have made for the Bears for a while. They just look who's there. Like look who's there, which is crazy to say with Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback. But with how things have shaken up here, it's future is not. I don't think it's too bright in Green Bay because they clearly do not have any faith in Jordan Love as their quarterback in the future.
Definitely not.
I think they really, really regret that first round pick a few years back. And I realistically could see them if they let Rodgers walk this off season, or not let him walk, trade him, I should say. Signing a Baker Mayfield, maybe, which is gross, but like a quarterback of that caliber.
It would be such an indictment on Jordan Love to sign Baker Mayfield. That would be genuinely just, it would make the pick so horrifically bad at that point.
I mean, it's not a horrible free agency class for quarterbacks. I mean, Garoppolo, he's going to get paid somewhere, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's in San Francisco again, if we're being completely honest, because I just find it very difficult to move on from him if you keep winning. And that's a whole other can of worms we could open another time. But then you have Daniel Jones, who has looked a lot better this year with Brian Dable. Granted, he's not going to get paid much wherever he goes. He'll get a prove it deal.
Yeah.
But he's someone I could see leaving. And then you have who I think is now the new Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that's Jacoby Brissett. I think he's just going to be that guy who goes in there as a stopgap for a year or two, plays his nuts off for a couple of weeks, comes back down to earth, gets benched, comes back, and does the same Fitzmagic type of thing for a few weeks. Because I think Jacoby Brissett, if he was ever given more than one, because what did he have? One season in Indianapolis as the starter?
I believe so, yes.
He's not even 30 yet. He's someone who I could see in the right opportunity being okay. And he's been pretty good with Cleveland this year. So someone's going to pay him a little bit of money, I'm sure. And then you have 32-year-old Geno Smith, who I mean has looked pretty damn good this year.
Yeah, he's been the biggest.
One of the best stories in football is this year. Not even just football, sports.
Yeah, I think by far he's the biggest revelation in football right now. And honestly, you could make that. You could definitely make that claim that's in all of sports. Like this story is so wild to me, just from a guy who we looked at the starting job in Seattle, and we said, there's no reason why Drew Lock shouldn't win. And we said when we saw Geno Smith win, we were just like, why?
We're like, yeah,
why?
And the thing with Geno Smith was you always knew he had the talent. And I just think he was in a lot of shitty situations. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't he get into a locker room fight at one point?
He sure did. He stole from his teammate and he got his jaw broke for it.
Okay. I knew he got hurt in some capacity. And I think for that reason, and unfortunately, kind of rightfully so, teams kind of looked at that as a little bit of an immaturity thing. And at the time, probably true. But he's 32 years old, and I'm going to say this is his first real opportunity at starting the NFL. Because, I mean, realistically, yes or no, but it feels like it. And the Seattle Seahawks are in first place in the NFC West right now. That was everyone's consensus pick to finish in last in the NFC.
Absolutely.
NFC West or NFC, honestly. And we've been talking a lot about Brian Dable being the runaway coach of the year, Nick Sirianni being up there as well. Pete Carroll's hat is firmly tossed in that ring right now.
Absolutely. And I was of the mindset that there is no reason why he should be coaching this year.
I agree.
I thought after Russ, it was like, all right, you should probably retire, get out when you can, just go. It's okay. It's totally okay. But what he's done with this roster is absolutely unbelievable, and he deserves all the credit in the world, because it seemed like he was a guy that he was just coaching just to coach at this point. He accomplished what he wanted to. He had his run at the top at the NFC, won the Super Bowl, but it seemed like it was over. But I think and you know what, I'm not going to say Geno Smith. I think Russell Wilson departing really injected a whole new life into that entire team.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Considering where the Broncos are and where the Seahawks are, it really spoke volumes to how that connection between Carroll and Wilson really was a detriment to the team. And once Wilson had to let go, then it became a thing where maybe Wilson was holding back Carroll more than the other way around. But just imagine if the Bears traded for Russell Wilson, what kind of situation?
Dude, I had that conversation the other day with someone, and it's just like we were all kind of on, not all Bear fans, but I most Bear fans were I'm bored with that. And he is looking like the worst contract in professional sports right now.
Oh,
and it's not. That's the problem. I don't even think it's close. And I think the most telling thing about Russell Wilson, everyone's known he's been a weirdo. I mean, it's like okay, weirdo. I don't know if that's the right word, but like odd, a little out there for
Very odd.
an NFL starting quarterback, not your typical NFL starting quarterback. How about that?
Yes.
It's weird report after weird report coming out where he exercised and stretched the whole way home while the team slept on their flight home from England. I don't know if you saw him with a video pregame in England where he was just like getting in touch with the 50-yard line with his headphones on, making sure everyone's recording him, finishing every interview he does now with Broncos country, let's ride. Like it's just like everything about him. And then when I forgot if the quote was from DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I forgot who it came
Tyler
from.
Lockett.
And Tyler Lockett, another guy, kind of like Brandon Cooks, very well respected across the league, as consistent as it comes out and says that, it's crazy along the lines of it's crazy when there's not someone blaming everyone else for problems and
Or wanting the credit
yep,
for the win.
yep. And I think that's kind of what everyone thought was happening in Seattle. But I believe Lockett's a captain and has been for a while. At least since Doug Baldwin's retired. That's telling, man. Like that is
Very telling.
And do you think Russell Wilson is like uncomfortable with all this too? Like, or do you think he's even aware? Do you think he just has such little self-awareness that he doesn't register that people, one, have a problem with him, and two, people find him to be a fucking weirdo?
So I think we don't give Russell Wilson the amount of credit for being more self-aware that we think he is. He's absolutely self-aware, and just the antics of being on a plane doing high knees and self-reporting that, being on the field, knowing the cameras around and getting in touch with his inner self. At midfield, he knew the cameras around. He knew what was going on, and of course, when you had a hard-fought win, and truthfully, he was the reason why they won that game against Jacksonville. He still had to use his tagline after a team win, and I forever wanted to know what was the beef with Russell Wilson. Why do people dislike him? Do people love Future that much that they decided to hate another man that they don't know either of them? I always thought that was the case. But from what I'm seeing now, he is a guy that genuinely it's all about him. Yeah. It is all about Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson is the reason for that. And that's why, like, the criticism, I can't even feel bad for him because he welcomed all of this stuff, from his backhanded arrogance to him being a diva and thinking that he's just up here and all. I really try to defend him, but I can't, because he just comes off as extremely, extremely disingenuous most of the time.
Yeah, I mean that's you hit the nail on the head there. And as we just make our way around the league following this past week, I know that there was one game in particular you wanted to touch on, and that's out in the AFC East, New York Jets, New England Patriots. Brandon, the floor is yours.
Oh man, so to get a little personal, my girlfriend's dad is a Jets fan. And I watched the game with him, and I told him leading up to this game that if the Jets want to beat the boogeyman known as the New England Patriots, it has to be Zach Wilson to do it. Zach Wilson has to show up. Yep. Because if we're going to be extremely honest, the Jets are an incredible story. They've won football games, but let me tell you, it's not been because of Zach Wilson at all.
He's been really, really bad.
And you know what? We ignore what his statistics look like because the Jets were winning. And it was honestly, who gives a shit about how he's done? That game against New England, I really hate to be reactionary. I hate to just jump to a conclusion. But I'm indeed going to jump to the conclusion that Zach Wilson is probably not the franchise quarterback of the New York Jets. When it's a game that's that big, and let's be honest, the Jets are a better team than the Patriots. And I dare I say they're a way better team than the New England Patriots on paper. Now,
Offensively, at least, yes.
offensively, and honestly, I would say defensively, I would give the edge to the Jets as well. Now, for a game like that, you couldn't move the field at all. You made silly decisions. You barely got rid of the football. You just gunshot and just let it rip. And it's crazy because Zach Wilson was a guy at BYU.
Gunslinger.
He was a gunslinger. He was going to let that damn thing go. But it seemed like even with all the weapons that he has on offense, Garrett Wilson, he doesn't even throw Elijah Moore the football. Corey Davis is out there. Tyler Conklin is out there. You have to let the damn thing go, man. You are the guy that the Jets are looking to be their savior. There were comparisons that are being drawn to Patrick Mahomes about you. And granted, whether I agree with that or not, it really doesn't fucking matter. But regardless, the comparisons were there. But this game was, to me, going to be the start of when we start questioning if Zach Wilson is going to be the starting quarterback of the Jets going further. And here's the thing too. We thought, okay, maybe he'll get the win against the Patriots because the Patriots are reeling off of getting beat down by the Bears on Monday night. They're coming off a short week. He said, why not? Well, why can't the Jets win? They didn't win. And you know what's the worst part about this? Buffalo's coming into town, man.
It's gonna be bad.
And Buffalo is a well-oiled machine. And I know the Jets, the Bills' run defense is not good, people. By the way, they're not good. Green Bay gashed them last weekend. But it seems like the Jets, they're like, after that game, I think it was well established that they're not scaring anybody. Mm-hmm. They're genuinely not scaring anybody. And that's going to be a problem when your defense is doing all the work. And granted, they did a whole lot of work on Sunday, but Zach Wilson was the reason why they lost that game. And that's very, very, very alarming.
Yeah. And I mean, Wilson completed under 50% of his passes. If I had to guess him, I think he threw 41, 42 times, something along those lines. That's probably the most he's ever thrown in his career, if I had to guess.
Probably.
And that would not have happened if Breece Hall did not tear his ACL last week.
Definitely.
And I do genuinely think they would have won that game if they had Breece Hall there, because Breece Hall has been just as good as it gets this year for a rookie running back, like remnants of just like, in terms of pure numbers, rookie Saquon, like just in what he's been able to do with like what his opportunities have been. I mean, look, now I have it pulled up. The Jets, if I had to guess, had 14 designed rush plays this week. Zach Wilson had one running rush for 2 yards. I'm sure that was a scramble or something. I don't know off the top of my head. Like I didn't watch the entire game, but it's just, I mean, Zach Wilson, I think this is going to tell you a lot. You kind of said that, where you're going to get a good idea if Zach Wilson can win you football games this year, especially now with Breece Hall being out. If it's going to take a superstar running back, you just have to assume he's not the guy. And I'm very thankful that he ended up in New York, because for a while, hand up, I drank the Kool-Aid of watching Zach Wilson at BYU. He won me a lot of money playing football at BYU, and that's probably why I liked him so much. But I wanted him to be a Bear for a while, and I am eternally grateful that he is a New York Jet. And I really think we could say that the history of quarterback for the Jets has been just as bad as the Bears.
Yes.
So, I mean, I do feel for him, because the talent they have, well, I mean, yes, offense, especially defense, their defense is still good, but like with talent they have on the offensive side of the football, they should be winning a lot of football games in the next few years. But I mean, it also begs the question, is the AFC East, like, I mean, they're gonna be just as good for the next 5-6 years as it's been, and instead of one team at the top now, there's two.
It's going to be a dogfight, and I do think the Bills are definitely look to come to collect from that one loss in Miami, where that was just that was just a very strange game. It was just very strange, a lot of weird stuff that was happening, and it's weird, but I think now it may not be the most appropriate time, but I have to make a proclamation here because I saw over the weekend, saw Zach Wilson play football. I watched Trevor Lawrence play football. I watched Davis Mills play football. Unfortunately, didn't get to see Trey Lance. But I saw Justin Fields play football as well. And for a guy that's in a lesser situation than most of the guys, I will say Davis Mills is probably in the much lesser situation than any other quarterback. Justin Fields officially, to me, at this moment in time, has the highest ceiling.
Number one in that draft class, without a doubt.
He has the highest ceiling, and it's insane that I'm saying this, but if you just wasn't thinking critically and you would just listen to the media and all this other stuff, they would tell you that Trevor Lawrence will be a successful NFL quarterback, but they will also tell you that Zach Wilson can't fail in the situation he is in. And let's be honest, Zach Wilson, you up into the Patriots game, you can say he wasn't hurting them, but he absolutely hurt them this weekend, the past weekend. Trevor Lawrence, you can say the same exact thing. You're not seeing much improvement on his end. So,
and the whole Trevor Lawrence situation is just peculiar to me because he looked really, really good to start the year.
Yes, he did.
You would expect a young quarterback like that learning a new offensive system to not look as good as he did.
Right.
And he is just taking step back after step back. And there was a graphic I wanted to bring up earlier in the show. Not sure if you saw it. I'll be honest, I don't know much about David Carr as an analyst. I couldn't even tell you who he works for. But I saw a graphic floating around on Twitter today. And, David Carr's NFL career, it wasn't great. He was a bust, but he still was in the league for over a decade. And I'm going to respect his opinion. In that regard, I will respect his opinion. If he was redrafting the 2021 quarterback class, he didn't put exact spots. He just put rough estimates. Not sure if you saw the graphic. I'll run through this real quick. Number one, Justin Fields within the top 10 picks. Okay. So an improvement of potentially one pick at its floor, 10 picks at its ceiling. Great. I would agree. I think most people would agree with that right now.
Yep.
Number two. Have you seen this graphic?
I'm looking at it right now.
Davis Mills within the top 10 picks. Now, Davis Mills has been okay. I think that he will be an okay starting quarterback in the NFL for a while. That is just really fucking sad for the rest of this list. Because then you go into Trevor Lawrence, mid to late first round pick. I would 100% still agree. You would take Trevor Lawrence, and I would still say probably the early first round just out of pure raw talent. But then again, that hindsight's 2020. But Zach Wilson, late first round. Okay, yes, probably the same. Trey Lance in the second or third round.
That's not as bad. I don't really disagree with that.
I don't think that's crazy either. You haven't seen much from him, and I don't think that's as crazy as Davis Mills in the top 10 picks. But
by the way, the next two picks you're about to say is where it gets legitimately fucking crazy.
Yes, because there's someone who I'm going to be mentioning, not this guy, Sam Ehlinger, who just took over for the Colts in the third round. What? With the seventh quarterback in this draft class, Mac Jones, going in the second to the fourth round. I don't care what your opinion of Mac Jones is. He, with this draft class, would still be a first round pick. He looked really, really good last year. And
by the way,
it's recency bias more than anything. And it's the Bailey Zappi effect.
By the way, Mac Jones was in the playoffs last year with the Patriots. Sam Ehlinger just had his first NFL start just last weekend.
Yep. And
what are we talking about here?
He looked horrendous. And as much as I want to trust David Carr's opinion, it is really hard looking at that graphic. I don't know what eyeball test Sam Ellinger is beating Mac Jones at in its current state, but hey, bulletin board material. Justin Fields, he's number one. I'm going to hang that. I'm going to put that on the ledge, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to enjoy it because that's my quarterback.
That is my damn quarterback. And you know what? I'm just hoping, because every time I do this, I hype a guy up and they make me look very, very silly. I'm really, really hoping that I'm right about this guy, because I'm putting all my damn money on him. I'm putting every bit of money that I have to say that he's going to be a great quarterback. I'm putting it all in.
I'm right there with you. And if it crashes and burns in our face, man, is it gonna hurt?
I'm going to go into hiding because I'm good.
It's gonna hurt. But with that being said, let's hope Justin Fields lives up to David Carr's graphic, which, whatever, I don't think he'll have much of a problem doing that. We'll be in trouble if he doesn't. But that's gonna wrap up this week's show, and I hope we're discussing next week another third straight positive performance in a row for Justin Fields, Brandon, because at this point, we're finally where we wanted the Bears to be when we were talking this offseason, where we were talking the first few weeks of the season. The Bears could lose by 30. They could get their dicks kicked in. But as long as Justin Fields is taking steps in the right direction, if Justin Fields is going this way and the draft pick's going that way, that's as good as it's going to get.
I'm happy.
And with the last few weeks, yes, the primetime win in New England felt great. It was great.
It felt damn good.
It was fun to watch. It was the first time I've had fun watching them in a while. But I had a lot of fun watching them lose, but put up a shit ton of points in Dallas too. As bad as it sounds, Fields looked great, and that's all we're looking for.
And you know what? If you watch the offense and turn off the defense, yeah, you'll be extremely happy.
You know what? Maybe I'll try that next week. But with that being said, thank you for listening to the show, watching, however you consumed it. Leave us a rating, like, share, subscribe. We appreciate everyone's support. We will be back next week. Go Bears.